Welcome to Shah Machshava on the Daf. We're holding in Chulin Daf Nun Aleph. The Gemara in Amud Aleph brings, there Rav Safra told Abaye, there's this Tzuvra min Rabbanon, there's this Tabich Chacham that came from Arava, came from Eretz Yisrael, and he says, Rav Avira Shmeini. My name is Rav Avira. And he said a shmur in the name of Rebbe that seemed to be contradicting the Mishnah that we have. So the Gemara brings a story that Abaye asked for Rav Avira to come to him. Rav Avira did not come. So Abaye went to Rav Avira. And when he comes to Rav Avira, he sees Rav Avira on the roof. He told Rav Avira, please come down. I want to speak to you. Rav Avira did not want to come down. So Abaye went up to him. And then he verified that the shmur that he said in the name of Rav Avira was not exactly as it sounded. It wasn't such a big chiddush. The Meiri points out that you see from here how Abaye dedicated himself and he was willing to go to after Rav Avira and go up the roof just to come and Mivar Torah. How much dedication he have for Torah? But the Mefarshim point out that Rav Avira seems what the Rav Avira said. The Gemara says when he came to Bavel, he says, Rav Avira Shmeini. My name is Rav Avira. Why did he call himself a Rav Avira? A person is not supposed to call himself with the title Rav. How do we know that? Comes with others to Oneself in Perikud Aleph in Brisa base. It says V'snas Arabonus Keitza Melamed Yaniach Odom Atorah Be'atzma Miroisha. A person should not title himself. Others will call him, give him title. Shemaya Lucha Zar V'loi Picha. And continues there. Numbers of Nasa and Omer Rekiva call him Magbia Atzma Divrei Torah. Someone who is Balgaiva because of Torah that he has, is like having a dead animal on the way. Anybody who passes by just closes his nose and goes away. So a person should not go around saying he's a Rav. And the Gemara in Psachim Daf Pevavim base brings that they asked Rav Huna, what's your name? He says, my name is Rav Huna. So I told him, why you called yourself Rav Huna with a Rav? So he says, Bala Sheimoni. Rashi says, since I'm young, that's my name. In other words, it's not a title of Chashivas. That's how I'm known as, Rav Huna. That's why he says Rav Huna. But you see, the Gemara asks, why are you calling yourself with the title Rav? So the Chavas Yair, in his Sefer Mark Shisho, brings this as a question. He says, in Gemara in Psachim, when Rav Huna calls himself Rav Huna, so the Gemara asks, why you call yourself Rav Huna? What's shot here in the Gemara in Chulin, Rav Avira says Rav Avira Shmeini, you don't ask why he's called Rav Avira. So the Chavas Yair sends us to Shut Ma'al Bach. And the Shut Ma'al Bach, and there's a kunjas called Kunjas Esmicho. And there is someone named Mari Beirav. He attacked the Ma'al Bach. Why did Ma'al Bach give himself a title, Ish Yerushalayim? So you shouldn't call yourself this way. He says you're giving yourself titles that you should not give yourself. So Ma'al Bach goes to explain what he did. But within that, he brings our Gemara, and he says, why is there a Rav Avira called himself Rav Avira? Because he had to be Moidiya HaNafshei. He had to let people know who he is. And he says that's the reason Rav Avira did not come down from the roof. If nobody knows who he is, it's a chutzpah not to come down. But once he says, look who I am, this is who I am, so therefore he's allowed not to come and listen to Abaye. So Marabach points out, really, a person should not call himself any Rebbe. But here Rav Avira need to be Moidiya himself. But Mitzat Sheni, in the Chaz Tshuva's Peyas Sotcho, Chelikav Siman Kuf Tezvov, he brings this Gemara to say that really there was a taina on Rav Avira. Rav Avira came and says, Rav Avira Shmeini. He says there's two Lubit Gaivo. First of all, he calls himself Rav, and he says Shmeini, which is another Losh of Gaivo. He doesn't say Shmi. Shmeini gives a little more Chashivas. And then in addition, when Abaye came to him, he didn't want to come down from the roof. So it was really to put Rav Avira more in a negative light. And that's why the shmur that Rav Avira brought really did not work out, so to speak, because of this guy. But to say what the Peyas Sadcha says, you have to have big shoulders to come and say that this here is a tinier of Gaiva. I am over here in the Ravun Margolius and in Tzotzi, he says the opposite. Shmeini is Shmi Akotot. Shmi means the big name, but Shmeini means the small name. So he says it's not Rav Avira because Loshon Rabbonos, but that was his name. The same way you have Ravino, you have Rav Brei de Shmuel, you have Rami Bar Rav. The Rav is part of his name. It wasn't a title, says Ravun Margolius. And then the Aderes and the Sefer Oiver Oirach Oispei, some Heoros that he wrote, he says that Rav Avira Bichlal did not call himself Rav Avira. He said, my name is Avira. But when they came to tell Abaye the story, so Rav Safra said to Abaye, this person, he said his name is Rav Avira. What he really said was, my name is Avira. But when Rav Safra quoted the story, he knew Avira, how chashuv he is. He said, my name is Rav Avira. That's how he quoted the story, because they wouldn't call him without the name Rav. So except for the Pe'as Sadcha that learns Rav Avira did something wrong, everybody else seems to say Rav Avira did not do anything wrong. That's what the Gemara has not pointed out. According to Maralbach, he had to be Murdiya himself in a place nobody knows him. According to Rav Margolios, that was part of his name. And according to the Adaris, he never called himself Rav Avira. So it still fits with the Havas Derab Nasan that a person should not give himself the title Rav. Anyone who wants to join in response to the Shom HaShavah Shurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.